Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of AngularAir. I'm your host, Justin Schwarzenberger, and today we have an episode on advanced caching with RxJS. Going to be pretty sweet, so let's get it started. Let's say hi to our panelists today. We've got Austin McDaniel with us. Austin, what's going on?
What's going on, everyone?
And we got Bonnie Brennan with us. Bonnie, how's it going?
I'm so excited, but I'm not going to tell you. Okay, so I'll tell you, but I won't tell you. I'm excited because the guest today is one of my favorite people, but I won't tell you who it is because that's Justin's job. Justin, who's our guest?
I thought you were going to say you were excited to see me Friday.
Well, yeah, because I'm going to have dinner with Austin on Friday. I'm super excited about that. Never mind about the mystery guest.
All right, lots to be excited about. Okay,
I'm so excited.
We may have a couple other panelists joining us here. If they hop on, we'll say hi as they come on. But our guest today is Dominic Elm. How's it going, Dominic?
Hi, what's up, everybody?
We are super excited to have you here, especially Bonnie, but I think all of us are excited as well, for sure.
Can I tell you a story about Dominic? A very short story about Dominic?
I think you need to ask Dominic if you can tell a short story about Dominic.
Sure, you can. Yeah, I'm now curious. What is the story?
Austin McDaniel muted me. Sorry about that. So the first time I ever met Dominic at ngComp, and there's a lot of people at ngComp, and there were a lot of other people that we met that year. We didn't really pay any attention to him because he's super quiet, and he was just he's nice, but he was like just really quiet, right? And then he came down to Houston for Angular Masterclass last summer, and I found, which I didn't realize, he is so silly and funny. Once you get to know him a little bit, he is the most fun person, and he's so silly. But if you don't know him, he's very professional and he's very polite. But once you get him off camera, he's super goofy. So I'm hoping. So I'm here, Dominic, so that I can help pull the super goofy out of you. So otherwise, you'll just be professional, and that's nice. You can teach him cool stuff, but also you're so much fun.
Thanks, Bonnie. Yeah. I don't know if that's going to happen today, but yeah.
Well, that's okay. I'll be your heckler.
Yeah, thanks for introducing me.
I don't know if that was a good introduction or not, but
yeah, that was definitely.
I think you're a super fun person.
Thanks. Well, you're fun too.
All right, Dominic, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Dominic. I'm a software engineer. I focus mainly on front-end technologies. I also do a little bit of back-end every now and then. But mainly I do trainings with ThoughtRam. So I'm a trainer at ThoughtRam, where we do public and in-house trainings all around the world. I do a little bit of open source. Yeah.
He travels with Pascal. That's fun. And he's wicked smart, you guys.
I do travel quite a lot, and yeah, I don't know what else to say about myself.
I got a question for you.
What's your favorite color?
My favorite color is blue. What's yours?
It's blue too.
You guys are such boys.
Blue's the best.
Hey, blue's my favorite color. What are you gonna do with that, huh?
Oh, it's just a blue day.
Blue day.
I got a question for you. It's not a color question. What's your favorite? No, it's not that. How did you get into the training and teaching stuff? Is that something that's always been a passion of yours, or did you just kind of fall into it?
Actually, so before I was working with ThoughtRam as a trainer, I was a front-end engineer at a smaller company, and I was actually a student of the Angular Masterclass. It was an AngularJS Masterclass, and I was a student there. And Pascal and Christoph was there, and I think, well, I had a lot of fun. And I think it was 2 years later, and I met Pascal at Angular Connect, I guess it was. And we were talking, and we had a burger, and I don't know, I wasn't super happy with my current job because it was a lot of maintenance work, and it was kind of boring, and I wanted to do something else. And so, yeah, we talked about opportunities to become a trainer. And yeah, so that's actually when I joined ThoughtRam. So, and then I did my first workshop at NGBE, and from there it just went on, and now I'm like a full-time trainer.
Nice. And you are a very good teacher.
Thank you.
But then so you start out and you're like being very like you're really good at making complicated things simple, which is like my favorite thing in a teacher. But then sometimes you get like super excited about something and then you start talking really fast and it's like so charming.
Oh yes, I know.
That part
I
gets
get
confusing, but it's
super
endearing
excited
too. Yeah.
Yes.
We
Okay,
miss you,
cool.
Dominic. I haven't seen you in forever.
Yeah, we should hang out. Maybe Angular Connect this year. See?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice. All right. So our topic today, advanced caching with RxJS. What do you got in store for us on that?
Well, so I don't really have slides, and it's, well, just going to be a little bit of introduction about caching, and then we're going to dive into some live coding session where we implement, well, actually, I want to talk about my blog post today, which I've written about advanced caching with RxJS, because there was like this question popping up all the time in trainings when we talk about RxJS and observables, which was, how do I, cache my application data using observables? Because many people are very familiar with promises, but reactive programming in RxJS is well, quite different, because it can be very overwhelming at first because, well, the API is quite big, right? It's a fundamental shift in mindset going from imperative to reactive functional programming. So I decided to write this blog post, and today I actually want to share this and do some live coding and answer some questions.
Yeah, that's going to be killer. The blog post, man, it's filled with so many good gems throughout it, right? That's one of the things I love the most when we got this content material out there that presents an idea and a concept and how to solve it. But then throughout that process of reading that, you discover all these additional things. I mean, a lot of stuff with RxJS throughout this blog post that get revealed that you can take away, and not only for solving the caching scenario, but others as well. So it's a really good one. Yeah, we're excited to hear more about it.
Yeah, exactly. So it has a lot of things in it that you can also use for other things, which is, so I don't know, how should we start? I mean, first of all, we could talk a little bit about different caching strategies. I don't know how you would cache things in your application. And I think there are many ways, many strategies. For instance, I don't know, we have, of course, client-side caching, which would be the standard browser cache, which is very ideal for, I don't know, caching assets, my CSS files, JavaScript files, and these kind of things, images. Then we have network caches, I guess, which I would describe as having like a CDN, like a content delivery network, which serves as a shared cache. So if you want to cache some data across all the different clients, you could use something like that, right? Then we have server-side caching. We have many different things, and also in-memory cache or service workers. And I think all of those strategies are not really mutually exclusive. I think it's a combination in most cases of all of them. So you definitely want to use the standard cache, the client cache, server-side caching, and in-memory cache, and all these kind of things. I guess it's always a combination of both. But as I said, today I think is going to be about how we can cache data like using an in-memory cache with RxJS. And I think we could just dive right into the code, because I think that's the fun part.
Yeah, let's do it. Sounds good.
All right, so I'm gonna share my screen now. Let me see. So sharing my screen. Where do I do that? So here is my screen. Cool. Share. Okay. Can you all see my screen now?
Yes.
Yep. We see the
Okay.
There you go. Cool.
So we're gonna focus on basically the app caching, which means in-memory cache, and we're gonna use RxJS. And if you have questions, I think I'm gonna explain most of it, but it's great if you have any questions, then you can just ask. If anything is unclear, you can always interrupt me. I think it's best if we just do this all together. All right, so here is the font size okay? I think I don't really need this, so we can make this a little bit smaller. Let me bump up this font size just a little bit. Does that work?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay, cool. So what I have here, and that's the same application from the blog post. And by the way, this is the blog post. Maybe we can share the link, in the chat.
He did.
Okay, cool.
Justin's
So
2 steps ahead of us.
yeah, that's great. Okay, so this is a very simple application, and the main purpose is we have these joke categories, but for now we only have one category. I can view that. As we can see, we get a list of jokes, Chuck Norris jokes. I cannot like them because it's about caching, but I really love those jokes because some of them are just hilarious.
I thought I knew all the Chuck Norris jokes, but I never saw like actual Chuck Norris nerd jokes.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the funniest thing. I
Actually,
told you guys he was funny.
Actually, there is this super nice API, which is the jokes API, and you can say nerdy, and then you get all sorts of Chuck Norris jokes. And when I was implementing this and writing the blog post, I was on the floor laughing. Some of them are super, super funny. Okay, anyways, so as you can see, this is, a very simple application. We can always go back to the dashboard and then back to the list view, right? And I think the important piece is, let me arrange this. Wow. Okay. I don't know why it's so extremely slow. Okay, this is crazy. What just happened with my stack blitz? Let's reload the page and make this a little bit. Wow. My machine is dying. I don't know why.
We had Eric on. Maybe we should just ping him really quick and tell him we got this episode,
Yeah.
make it fast.
Yeah, make it real fast now, immediately. Okay, once this application loads, I'm gonna go to the network tab so that we can see that every time I go from the dashboard to the list view, I can see the data being fetched from that API. And we want to solve that basically by using a cache. Okay. So is this just slow for me? Wow. This is extremely slow.
So when do we want to start thinking about like this need for caching our network requests for this data? Is there kind of a concept of like, oh yeah, this is when I should or introduce it? Whatnot?
I think, well, caching, I think it really makes sense if you have a lot of navigations from one page to another, and you don't want, essentially what caching allows you to do is decrease the network cost, right? Because always network requests are always very expensive, and in the best case scenario, you want to reduce them to a minimum, right? And also we want to improve the responsiveness. So I think caching is almost in every case a very good thing to do, because, and by responsiveness I mean that the UI should be very snappy, right? So that the content can be retrieved faster or almost immediately. So I get it once, and then if I know it's not going to be changed in, I don't know, very frequently, then I can just cache it, right? To make my app very, very responsive and not to perform all those HTTP requests.
What about if our data changes, right? Like caching is like a dangerous game, right? Because, we can get over optimistic with it, and we can be caching too much. And when our data changes on the back end, right? Like now, since we cache this, we're not getting the updated values. Like, how do you approach something like that with these strategies?
That's a great question, and actually, that's what we're going to cover today. Because what we want is essentially, if I go to this page, to the list view, I'm going to cache it, and then behind the scenes in a service, I'm going to basically pull for the data every 10 seconds. So I'm going to refresh the data in the background, but I don't want to ruin the user experience, right? Because if the data is basically refetched in the background and streamed to the front end, to the view, then my view would just update, which is not so cool, because I could be just reading those jokes and all of a sudden they change because the data was changed in the background in the service, right? Because I'm polling. So in order to solve this, I'm gonna or we're gonna implement this notification system. So we're getting a notification when there's new data available, right? So I'm refetching the data every 10 seconds, and when there's new data available, I get this notification, and then I have to click it to refresh the UI. I think that's a pretty good approach. It may not be the best, but it's one way to solve this, I guess.
Why wouldn't you want to automatically refresh the screen?
Well, as I said, I probably, if I just scroll through this list and I read those jokes, and all of a sudden they change, and that joke that I was just reading is gone. I think that's not a really good user experience, because I think it really depends on the use case. If you really want real-time data, then you probably wouldn't use like a polling mechanism in the first place, and then instead use something like server send push notifications, right? So the server sends us new data instead of us polling for the new data. But yeah.
Dominic, that's one of the things that's really great about your post, is that you not only cover like how to do the caching, but then you really cover all the bases on it. You know, like Austin alluded to, I mean, once you start implementing a caching strategy, there's so many different things that you have to kind of cover and be aware of, and then make decisions on. And
Yes.
Your post goes through really all of those, which makes it great content.
Yeah. Right. So if I now it's loaded. What I actually wanted to show is I'm on a dashboard, and if I click, we can see that the data is being requested, right? It goes to this API here. As you can see, this nerdy category, I can go back to the dashboard. Every time I go to the list, it's being refetched. And I think one good way is to actually cache the data. If we know that it's not going to change very frequently, yeah, so we can do that. But before we do that, actually, let me just quickly sign in and show you I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom so that we see what we're going to implement. So if I click on Run, let's see the final solution, which implements all of that. So we're going to go from a very simple cache using RxJS to a very advanced cache with all those notifications, and yeah, notifying the UI that there's some updates. Okay. It seems that my internet connection is pretty bad. Hopefully this will load at some point. Yeah. Really sorry for this. I don't know what's going on here. Ah, instantiating bundle. There we go. So this is the final solution. We know the application. So from the dashboard, I can go to this. And if I wait 10 seconds, the data is being refetched in the background, and we should see a notification popping up. So we just give it a few more seconds. As you can see, it's not automatically reflected in the UI, which I think is very good, because it does not just replace the jokes. And it could be that I don't know, I'm working with one of these jokes or reading them. So I can click on Update, and then the UI is being updated as well. So as you can see, there's another update. Also, I can immediately refetch data. And that's going to re-trigger another HTTP request, updating the data immediately, which is pretty cool. And that's what we want to implement. Okay, cool.
Dominic, I got a quick question for you.
Yes.
Now, I know that this code and this post, it covers a lot, so I'm not asking for more, but does it happen to identify when that new data comes in, if our actual cache data had changed, in order to notify you? So that it says, like, it doesn't notify you if the new data that came in is the same as your existing cache, or does it not cover that?
Wait a minute. What do you mean? So basically, it's actually pretty simple. we always get a new notification. It doesn't really check whether the data is the same. It just refetches the data every 10 seconds in the background, and then it will notify the UI, popping up that notification. So there's no check between the data.
So, but you're storing this in the store, right? Or no, wait, I'm sorry. Okay. Maybe you're not using ngRx. So, but if you were storing in something store or something, but basically the idea that if I'm viewing this list and new data, it made a new poll for new data, right? But the data hasn't changed. It's the same as what's in my cache. I wouldn't, as a user, need to click update, right?
Exactly. But in that case, I would implement the service a little bit different so that, yeah, I would implement this check between the data. And if it hasn't really changed, I would not notify the UI in that case. Right?
And so that's not in this post, but it's something that we could go and add, if we want to take to the next.
Yeah, definitely. We could do that.
Called scope creep, Justin.
Oh.
All right. So yeah, we've seen that the data is always fetched, right? If I go from the dashboard to the list view, it's always fetched. And to give you a brief overview of the application, it's actually pretty simple. We have a dashboard, which we don't have to look into. It's just navigating to this list view. And then we have the list itself, which is a list component. And we could take a look at, let me make this a little bit wider. So the list component really just uses an ngFor, iterates over all the jokes that we have. It's using the async pipe because personally, I'm a huge fan of the async pipe because it does a lot of things for us. I guess you're all familiar with the async pipe, but for those who don't know everything about the async pipe, actually we have a pretty great blog post that we could share. It's 3 things you didn't know about the async pipe. It's on the ThoughtRam blog. I guess it's definitely worth reading. But the great thing about the async pipe is really that we don't have to fiddle with manual subscriptions or subscribing to observables in our component class. Right? It's going to take care of all that. It's going to subscribe to this, in this case, this jokes observable, and it's also going to unsubscribe from that stream if this particular component is being destroyed, which is really, really great. And it does a few more things, but I just point to that blog post because I think it's pretty great.
And can I just jump in here and say, the whole ThoughtRam blog is pretty great. There are some really good articles on there, and they get updated. Like if something changes, they go back and update them.
How much are they paying you, Bonnie?
No, they're not paying me. I'm telling you, it's great. Well, the reason I love it is because sometimes I'm here by myself and I'm trying to figure out code and people think I'm really smart and they're paying me for this and I don't know how to do it. So I go look on the ThoughtRam blog or the Narwhal blog, which are probably my 2 favorite blogs. Don't let it go to your head, guys. It's just they're really good because they make it very clean and simple, and it explains it very well. And I find the right answer there. And some blogs will actually give you the wrong answer, and I'm not going to say who those are, but those are really good blogs. But I'm sorry, Dominic. Go ahead.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, so right, so we have the stream, we basically iterate over all the jokes, and we're using the async pipe. Now in the class, all we do is we have this class property jokes, which is an observable, right, an array of jokes. And inside the constructor, we inject the joke service, which is going to take care of fetching the data. And it's also going to take care of caching the data. So that's the job of the joke service. Inside the ng on a init, and here also, I'm a huge fan of putting things into the ng on init lifecycle hook because I try to only use the constructor for dependency injection because, yeah, having things inside ng on init or initialization logic just makes it way easier to test. And also, I think fetching data doesn't really belong into the constructor because it's still instantiating the component. So we just wait until the component is really ready to be initialized or with our custom logic. Right, and as we can see, this may look a little bit weird at first. So because you would probably have expected something like, okay, we're calling the joke service, right? And then, hey, give me the jokes, right? Like this. So it's not a function. What I'm using here is basically just a it's a getter function, which is pretty cool. So it just looks like a property, and it is, but behind the scenes, it's a getter function. And another thing, all right, we can ignore this. By the way, memoization is also a way of optimizing the performance of our applications. Memoization, I would consider that also as one caching strategy. It's like application-specific caching. So we can cache the data for that particular function. And so when it's called with the same arguments, we're not going to re-execute the function. So that's pretty great, especially if you use something like ng4, right? I go back to the template here, which is the joke list component. And here we can see that get jokes, right? I'm calling this function and I'm giving the joke ID. But whenever something changes or there's change detection being triggered, the view will update, right? So this function will be called again and again and again. And for that, we can use some caching, I would say, which is called memoization. So just as a little side note here. And
really quick, what we need to do is we need to have another episode and just talk about that. Maybe we can get you and Minko to come on, and we could just do a memoization and pipes. That'd be great.
Oh yeah, definitely. I really, really like memoization because, well, you can use functions which compute stuff, but it's not going to be re-executed if the arguments haven't changed, which in most cases, well, it's the case, right? It's pretty awesome. Yeah, but we could definitely do an episode. All right, so the joke service. The joke service is also pretty simple for now. It uses the HTTP client service, which we can use once we import. Let me go to the app module. I guess you all know that. The HTTP client module, we have to import that in order to use the HTTP client service, right? I'm injecting the service, and then I have this getter function here. So to the outside or to the consumer, it looks like just a property, which is pretty cool. And inside here, I just have this private method which does the HTTP request, right? I'm using the HTTP service, and what I really like about the HTTP client, or the new one, as opposed to the old HTTP service, is that it's strongly typed. So we can now strongly type the response, and it's so great. It really leverages the power of TypeScript, which I really love. So what we do is we do this GET request, and then we basically just map the data to only the value, and that's how the API. It has all sorts of properties, but all we're interested is the value property. So we just map it. Is this clear? Like the general idea of piping and the pipeable operators and mapping?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's basically it, and that's what's happening in this application, right? And now, in order to implement the most simplest caching mechanism, what we could do is basically say that we're just plugging in. So RxJS has a ton of operators, right? We can use that. There's, I don't know how many. I think more than 120. It's a lot, really.
The only one I know is switch map.
So I bet you know a little bit more. But yeah, so I mean, from those many operators, I maybe use, I don't know, 15 or maybe even less. Yeah. All right. So what we're going to do in order to provide a cache to the consumers of the joke service is we're going to implement a private. Can you all read it? Is the font size big enough?
Yes.
Maybe we can bump it up a little bit.
Okay. Yep. Maybe I can zoom in. Whoa! It's going crazy. No, I'm not gonna zoom in. I'm just gonna do this. Is that better?
Yeah. That works.
So I think we don't need this. So let me make this, and also this is also okay. Okay. So the first step is we're gonna create this private property, this class property, and we're gonna call it cache. That's our cache. And I'm using this $sign as a suffix here just to indicate the type of this property. And it just tells me, hey, this is of type observable. And I really love this convention. It's really, you don't have to use it, but it really helps me to better reason about my code and to see the type of this property. And I'm going to say it's of type observable. So, and that's going to be an array of joke, right? I define all those interfaces. I think I don't have to show them. It's just interfaces, right? So the cache is storing an array of jokes. So now inside my jokes getter function, I can just simply say, I can check if the joke, so this property is null by default, right? So if this service is instantiated, it's going to be null. So it's not going to be, assign any value. So what I can do is basically say, if my cache is not initialized yet, right? I can say this.cache, so I'm going to assign some value to my cache, right? And the value for that cache is going to be, well, my HTTP request, but not just the bare HTTP request. It's going to be modified a little bit. But let's do the request for now. So I'm doing my HTTP request. So I'm calling this private function here, this helper method here, which just simply returns an observable for that HTTP request. And observables by default are lazy, which means I can just call this function and I'm not going to perform the HTTP request, which is defined in this helper method here, right? Because it's lazy. I have to subscribe. We always have to subscribe to kick off the work of that observable. So I can call this and then modify the returned observable and add some new behavior or by adding some operators. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pipe. And to make this a very, very simple cache, I'm going to use an operator called share replay. And share replay takes, well, you can see a few parameters, but the one that is important to us is the buffer size. So I'm going to say the buffer size is 1. And the buffer size is basically just, it's going to buffer caching one value, and it's going to replay that particular value to all the consumers. So it's only going to do that request. Well, okay. Let me finish this up real quick. And then for the function, we have to return something, right? And here we're going to return the cache, which means the first consumer who's calling this getter function or is requesting the data, the cache is going to be undefined, right? It's going to be null. So we're initializing our cache. So we get the HTTP observable, which gives us the data from that API. And we're going to extend it, or we're going to modify. We're going to create another observable with the behavior that we need. And that is the caching behavior, right? And for that, we can use share replay and tell it, OK, please always, for every new subscriber, if there's no new value, just replay the last value. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. So that's already a very, very simple caching mechanism. And what share replay essentially does is it's going to create a hot observable, which means that all the subscribers share one underlying source, and not every subscriber is recreating the underlying source. And the underlying source in our case would be the HTTP request. This is what we do not want, right? We don't want every subscriber to reperform that request. We want to share that across all subscribers, basically. So when the first request is made, we're going to cache it using share replay, and to all subsequent or future subscribers, we're just simply replaying the last value, which is super nice. And this is all we have to do to get our very first simple cache, at least in terms of this service, right? And now we can just go ahead and already
Real quick before you go on, just to make another point clear here, like you didn't set up any local scope field in this class to save that data. The share replay, I mean, that's all kind of stored within the observable. So now you're not having to keep track of the actual jokes within this class, right?
Exactly. And then that's the great thing about observables. Observables allow you to, I would say that I would consider this service almost stateless, right? Because it is not really kept manually inside a property here, which is, I mean, it is technically it's stored within that observable, but it's really all the logic is really coming from that share replay, and share replay will take care of caching it and replaying it to all new subscribers, which is super great. It really reduces all the boilerplate that you have to write and all the code and the code that you have to maintain. It's really concise and on the point.
Yeah, it's, we know, I mean, we hear about the fact that, RxJS and observables have all this power to do all these things, right? And it's like, it's the thing that just keeps on giving. I mean, this is just a little finite thing, but it's pretty cool. The fact that, like, with this, you got this replay, you essentially have that storage of that data there. Now you don't have to worry about doing it, and you can leverage it from there. So it's just another one of those magical things that kind of we get out of observables. Pretty cool.
Exactly. It's really yeah, it's RxJS is really powerful, and I really love it. It takes a little bit of time to wrap your head around it, and also for me, yeah, in fact, I was really struggling in the beginning to make that shift in mindset. But once you get familiar, all you have to do is really practice, 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 and that's what I did with RxJS. I did all sorts of things. For instance, I also implemented a library recently, which is this drag to select. It's ngAir drag to select, and it really just, I really only created that library because I was asking on Twitter for some challenges that I could solve with RxJS just to practice. I would really, yeah, if you really want to wrap your head around it, just do something with RxJS and practice. I think that's a pretty good advice.
Did you just say that you're looking for more RxJS problems to have to practice? Did you hear that, everybody?
Definitely. I would still say that. I would still say that I know people are going to flood me with all those challenges, but I don't have that much time. But every now and then I really love to solve those challenges. And this was part of it. Like, I really started to implement this in a very complicated way, but that's not a problem. You can always start very complicated and super sophisticated, but then step back for a minute and look at your code and try to iterate. That's what I really learned over, also what I really learned from Pascal and Christoph and working with them is really iteration. You can do something, it will never, in most cases, it will never be perfect, but you can implement something and then take a look at your code and try to refactor it step by step. Yeah. Okay, let's get, sorry for the detour.
That's all right. I think
detours are the best.
So we're good.
Detours are the best. Yeah, sometimes I do very big detours and talk about things that, well, have nothing to do with this.
It's part of your charm.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so we have share replay, and that's great because it's, yeah. So this is already just a working cache, and we don't have to do anything inside our component, right? If I go back to the component, which is this one here, I'm simply calling this. And so let me, hopefully I can reload this. And I'm going to open up the DevTools, but this time, let's put it here at the bottom to make this all nice. Okay, so let's go to the network tab and just verify that this already works. Where's my, there it is. Awesome. So network tab, I'm going to click on XHR, and I'm going to, so the moment I click on view, we're going to see an HTTP request, right? We see that HTTP request here being made because that's the first subscriber to the observable that is exposed by the service, right? If I go back to the service, let me make this a little bit smaller again. The first one that calls this jokes getter method will instantiate the cache, and it's going to make a request and share and replay that value to all subsequent and future subscribers. So when I now go back to to the dashboard, right? It is being destroyed. If you remember from our template here, we're using the async pipe, which will automatically unsubscribe from that observable. And in the case of cold observables, so if you have a cold observable and you're gonna resubscribe to that, you would reperform and recreate the source of the observable. But the fact that we made this hot by using share replay, basically multicasting operators here, that's not going to be the case. And also because we store the cache instance inside this property, which means if I now go back to the view and resubscribe to that observable, which is exposed by the service, we don't see any requests. So it's already being cached. Isn't that great? I find this super, super mind-blowing. So the first time I was working with this and I plugged in that share replay, and magically things were cached. So
you were going to say auto magic, weren't you? Auto magically.
Yeah, I wanted to say auto magically.
Do it. Embrace the goof.
Okay. Yeah, so this is so great. So I can just now go back and forth, and this is already caching. So, and this is a great way of caching things. So if you know that your data that you're fetching is not going to change sometime in the future or very frequently, this is a great way of just caching it. It makes your application super snappy. Imagine you're using this application on a slow 3D network, right? I make this slow, so it is really slow. I can go immediately see the data. If this would be refetched, I would see that this tiny delay, maybe of a few hundred milliseconds, but caching makes it really snappy. But you always have to think whether you can apply caching, or you always have to keep in mind, what is my data? You always have to consider that, right? It's not that you should use this everywhere. As I said, if the data really changes frequently, you may have to think about other things. Okay?
Cool.
Any questions so far?
Nope.
Nope. All right. That's good. All right. So I think we can just go on to, so what is the next step? The next step is actually that we want to fetch the data in the background, right? Because now it is never updated. Let's say we know that and by the way, we're also going to implement this fetch new jokes so that we can fetch new data right away. But for now, let's say we want the data to be updated in the background every 10 seconds. So how can we do this? Well, actually, that is not that difficult either with RxJS, because all we have to do, so what we can do is basically say, we could use, there's an operator called, do I have it here? No, I don't have it here. I can use, oh, by the way, this is the old RxJS imports, but I think that's okay for now. So what we, yes, I'm sorry for that. I haven't updated this.
I like how he like lowers his voice to be like, don't judge me, you guys, but.
All right, so one way of doing this, and this is another reason to use the latest RxJS version, it really simplifies these imports. It's, if you update to RxJS 6.x, it is really just mainly two imports. It's RxJS and RxJS operators, and not this thing here. Okay, so one way to refetch the data in the background is to use something like an interval, right? We have browser APIs like setInterval, which execute a callback every X milliseconds. So that's great, right? Because we know we want to update the data in the background based on an interval. So let's do this. So what we can do is basically say, we're going to set up here inside my cache, I'm going to say, I'm going to call this, and one recommendation or one advice I would give you is, if you solve problems in a functional reactive way using RxJS or observables, break down your problem into smaller chunks, smaller pieces, and then take those pieces at the end and bring them back together. This really helps me to reason about my code and to make it more readable, and also in some cases more maintainable. So what I do, and this is what I mean by breaking things down. So we want some interval. So something, a stream that emits a value every 10 seconds, right? So I'm going to create an interval. And this interval is based on this static interval function. And I'm going to say, OK, every 10 seconds. So I'm passing this. It takes basically this. Can I bring back that IntelliSense? No, I cannot. Cool. So it basically there it is, period. Awesome, and a scheduler. So the first parameter is basically the period, and it's in milliseconds. So I'm going to say 10,000, which is 10 seconds. So that is my interval. So what interval basically does is, let me create this ASCII diagram here. So I have my stream, which is my interval stream, and that's going to emit every 10 seconds a value. But the thing is, and in our case, it's not ideal, I would say, because the first value is emitted 10 seconds later. And I think that's not great, because if we reload the page and we go to the list view the first time, we don't want to have that delay of 10 seconds, right? We want to see the data right away. So for the first subscriber to our cache, to our service here, we want to make that request. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So with interval, this means we would wait. Basically, let's say every dash is 10 seconds. Let's just assume that. So every dash is 10 seconds. So only after 10 seconds, we would get a value. And then after another 10 seconds, and so on and so forth. So there's another operator that we can leverage to actually solve this, because we want to emit a value right away. So what I can do is I can use timer. And I have this, I think I have this great marble diagram here, which demonstrates the problem here. So interval, as we can see, takes a period, right, in milliseconds. So every 10 seconds, there is a value being emitted. But the problem is there's this delay in the beginning. And we could actually solve this problem using interval by doing something like this. We can say pipe and then start with, which is just going to kick off the stream with some value. Of course, I have to import this. I'm going to import that from RxJS operators. And this would pretty much solve, I mean, I wouldn't call it a problem, but in our case, it's not the wanted behavior. So this would basically solve this. So it would emit a value right away, wait 10 seconds, and it would look like this. But there's another operator that we can use called timer. And timer is actually exactly what we want. It takes an initial delay and it takes a period. And the period we already know from Intel, right? And if we set that timer, this initial delay, to 0, we would get exactly, oh, sorry, excuse me. We would get exactly this, but with one single operator. And that is mind-blowing. I always find that mind-blowing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, where is it? I want to get timer. So I am importing timer here instead of interval. And I'm going to call that timer. I'll leave that there for a second just to make this more clear. I'm going to change that timer. And as we know from the marble diagram, it takes an initial delay and it takes my period. And the period is going to be 10 seconds, similar to the interval. And I can just get rid of all that, right? It's just the timer now. And it's one operator. It's super on the point. Very nice. This is exactly what we want. And it keeps on emitting infinitely. All right. So, and now we just have to base. So every time that timer emits a value, we want to refetch the data, right? We want to fetch the data. So what we can say is, and this is what I meant by breaking things down. So we have two things. We have the timer, and then we have the actual caching and fetching logic. So what I could say is, I want to base my cache now on the timer thing. So whenever the timer emits a value, I'm going to pipe. I need to add some few operators here. And what we have to do is basically switch map. We're going to use switch map. Do I have switch map already imported? I don't, of course. Switch map. Let's get switch map. Switch map is awesome. So we have switch map. And switch map basically takes a function, and the function gets the value that is emitted on, but so timer just emits integers going from 0 to infinite, right? So we get that value, but we're not really interested in that value. All we want to do is basically switch from that timer, from the value that is emitted on the timer stream, to my HTTP request, to a stream that does the fetching. So what I can do is basically take this thing, and I'm going to map the value on my stream, on the timer stream, and map it to another inner observable. Do I have to explain switch map, or can I assume
you have to explain switch map, and you have to, and Brocky's not here, Shai's not here. I don't know if you could possibly explain switch map better than they did.
I don't think so, because that conference talk at ngConf, that was just wow.
Yeah,
you could just explain
description of it, because we have an episode where we did the behind the scenes of that talk, and we can point people to talk. So if they really want to learn the details about switch map, we can send them some resources. So
yeah,
it was just recently.
Yeah. I mean, in a nutshell, it's really just mapping like some primitive value to another observable, and then flattening the values from this. Oh, it's really, let's say watch that talk. I think that's.
I can never hear the word flattening again without picturing Pete going. I can't even say it. I'm not even going to try to say it like him. It's just.
But actually, I have a very nice model diagram in my blog post. Maybe that makes it clear. So as we can see, right, the timer emits those values, and those are just primitive values, which is numbers, right? 0, 1, 2, and so on and so forth. And now with switch map here, it takes a function, and as we can see, it gets the green value as a parameter, but we don't do anything with that green value because we don't care about the timer values, right? We just don't care. So we just simply map this value similar to just a simple map where we, let's say, map apples to bananas, right? We just map one value to another value. We do the same inside this switch map, right? We just map it to an observable, and this observable, of course, also emits some values, right? As we can see. So we map this first value to some stream, which emits one value. And we do that for every single green value. We just simply map those, and we take those values from those orange streams here, right, and emit them on the resulting stream. And the great thing about switch map, I don't want to talk too much about this, but compared to merge map, actually those are very similar, but there's a tiny, very important difference, because switch map will automatically unsubscribe from the previous inner observable. And when I say inner observable, I mean these streams that we map to, right? As you can see here, this is exactly the case. The second value comes in, the second green one, we map it to some stream, right? But that value comes back way later in time. But there's already a third green value emitted. So of course we map it to this other inner stream, which emits 3. So we already at this point unsubscribe from this second one, and we just forget about that 2. And we just simply keep going with the latest value. So we always keep track on the latest subscription. I hope maybe that helps some people. I don't know.
I think that's really helpful. I mean, I have to say I love your diagrams just in general, because sometimes when I'm trying to, like, I don't want to say, sometimes I have a hard time wrapping my brain around a new concept, but it's hard sometimes, right? And for me, RxJS operators, when I first learned it, was something I kind of struggled with. And those diagrams really, I mean, for me, it helped me a lot. I love the diagrams, and your diagrams are, every blog post should have a diagram, I think, especially yours, because I love your diagrams.
Yes, I tried. I don't know if those diagrams are very helpful to everyone. I don't. Yeah, I've heard that some people find them confusing a little bit, but for me, yeah, I really try to make them simple. I don't know.
Well, Chaos Monster just agreed with me in the chat, so it's official.
Oh, that's nice. Thanks.
No, I think it is super helpful.
Okay,
I think maybe for the people who already know, it's like, oh yeah, we don't need that. But for the beginners, it's, I mean, for me, when I was beginning learning RxJS, those were really helpful.
Okay, great. I'm happy to hear that. So I can just keep creating those. That's good. Okay, so yeah, we want to map that timer thing to some HTTP request. So for every timer tick, you can just call it tick. We want to make that request, right? And at the end, we just plug in our share replay to make it so that we share the latest value and always share replay the latest value. If I set that to 2, this means I store the last 2 requests, and I would always replay those last 2 events. But of course, we are only interested in the most recent value. Okay, cool. And this is already basically it. So now this means if I can actually save this. Yeah, cool. I can save this. So this is already updating things in the background. So this means if I go to my list component, let's see, I get the stream. Yes, perfect. So let's see this in action. So I click on view, I get the data, and I think we have to wait 10 seconds. If that's too long, we can reduce the interval. So 10 seconds later, yeah, we can see the data is automatically refetched on that timer, right? Which is super awesome. I mean, we're now refreshing the data every 10 seconds, but I think we can do better, right? Because now the UI is updating. I'm scrolling here. I'm having so much fun reading this super long joke, and all of a sudden the data is gone because it's automatically reflected in the UI, which is not so cool, I would say, in terms of the user experience. Any questions so far?
No.
Awesome. All right, so I think for now we're done with the service. So we have that logic in place, which is refetching the data or refreshing the data in the background. So we don't have to focus on the service anymore. And by the way, this what I live code and what I implement here is just a little disclaimer here. I think there's probably a ton of ways, and that's what I encounter all the time. If you try to implement something with RxJS, there is many ways to roam. Or how do you? Is there a saying in English? So in German we say there are many ways to roam. Is that you have a saying in English?
All roads lead to Rome, I think.
All roads lead to Rome. Yeah, maybe that. So
or there are many ways to skin a cat.
Yeah.
I didn't make that up. It's a saying. Don't blame me.
I'm like, you're really going dark there, man.
It's not my thing. I'm sorry. Blame my dad.
Okay, all the roads. I don't really like to skin cats, so all the roads lead to Rome. Let's say that. So yeah, there are many ways to solve a problem, and this is just one way. And
so
yeah.
For me, I think that's one of the hardest things, is because there are so many ways to answer a problem. Do you have an answer for, like, if someone's intimidated by all the ways, like, that helped you, like, come up with, well, this is the solution I'm going to use?
No, I don't really have, no. In most cases, what I try to do is really just get feedback from other people. I think that helps. You can implement something and don't feel bad about your implementation. Really, just implement something. I think every implementation is good. It's not good or bad. It's just one way of implementing things. And if you ask 10 people, you get 10 different answers, maybe. I think for me, the best thing you can do is really implement something, do it your way you think is, do it the way you think is the best, and then get feedback from other people. Just ask about opinions, like, would you do it the same way? And I don't know, but I don't think it's always that black and white.
Yeah.
But I think, feedback is really the best thing. Okay, cool. So we got that caching mechanism in place, and now we don't want the UI By the way, how many aren't we almost over? Like, no?
Yeah,
Do I
so
still have time?
we're at the top of the hour.
Uh-oh.
We can continue on if you'd like to share some more, or we could wrap it. We could have another episode of follow up. Whatever you feel like doing, we can make time if you want, or we can wrap it up however you like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to grill people too much. I'm cool with just keep going if it's fine. Well, either way is fine for me.
Okay.
Just talk really fast.
Should I just finish up and do it real fast?
No. Let's keep going for a while. If any of our panelists have to drop off, that's fine. But yeah, I think it's great content. So if you're willing to keep sharing, then let's capture a little bit more.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I think some people could really I think it's great to have not only just a blog post, because some people they prefer videos and just, you know, coding along with whatever they see in a video. And yeah, it's cool with me if I just keep going.
Yes.
Chaos Monster says keep going.
Okay.
It's official.
It's official. So if Chaos Monster says it, it's official.
Yeah, well, he agreed with me earlier, so yeah, we're absolutely listening to him.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we got the caching thing in place, and now we don't want the UI to automatically update. That's super annoying, right? So we're going to focus on our list component, because the service in itself shouldn't be responsible for like sending notifications, in my opinion. Probably there are many different opinions, but the service in our case is really just fetching the data and implementing this cache. And the UI knows best when to update things and when there's new data. We can just hook into whatever is exposed by the service, but the notification is UI related, in my opinion. So so what I do is we implement now this notification system inside that component. This is just like a very simple, for this use case, it's okay to have it inside the component. But in most cases, you maybe want to reuse that logic. So you can put it into, you can either use the static pipe function, which is pretty cool to create reusable pipelines of operators. You can put it into a service. You can, like a notification service, all those things. But just to keep it simple here, we're going to do it inside the component. So what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to implement a new function, which is, again, a helper function, because I know that I'm going to need that piece of functionality in multiple places. So I'm just going to extract it into a reusable function here. So we're going to call that get data once, right? And what this does is basically just taking this this jokes thing here, and it's going to return that. But as the name already indicates and implies, it's only getting the data once. So we're going to pipe it, and we say there's another operator, yay, which is take. And we're going to get take from RxJS operators. Again, use RxJS 6. It will make your life easier. So here's take. Awesome. And take, so with take, basically we can just control it. Just give me one value, the very first value, and then that stream is going to complete. It's going to be completed. So it's not going to emit any more values, because we know that the observable returned by this jokes property is ongoing, right? It's long living. It will re-emit the values. So as we can see on the right, it's always updating and streaming the data from the service. We do that request, we're polling new data, and it's going to stream all the way to the UI because of the async pipe and the subscription there. So, and now we can just say, we're going to move that. We're going to say, we're again breaking the, things down into smaller pieces, because that is really helpful. So we can say const, and we're going to name that initial jokes. Not cokes, initial jokes. Sorry for that. So get the data once. So that is my initial things. So, and then I can just say initial jokes, and we're back to what we had before, right? We're fetching it once, but let me quickly bring up the dev tools here. No, we don't. Of course, we don't see it anymore, because wait a minute. Oh, this is one thing that I think it just keeps storing the, well, anyways. Okay, we get the data here, right? Let's see. We should not see. So in the background, we see that requests are being made. But if you look on this application here where I scroll, the data is still the same. So it's still updated in the background. So our service has the latest data. Hello, little dog.
Sorry.
No problem. Has the data stored in the cache already, and it's being refreshed, but it's not streamed to the UI anymore, because we say, hey, just give me the data once, right? And now one thing. So inside my list component, I hope, where's my reload? That's the reload. Where's my notification? Do we have the notification? Jokes. Oh, this is the notification. Where's my notification? This here? Ah, that's the notification. So stretch. Wait a minute, I have to, that is my button, and that is the span. Joke. Oh no, that's not my notification. Wait a minute. There's my notification. You can't see it. So there is, but where is it? It is actually not. Can you use? Huh? Am I blind? So why is this not showing?
This is the fun of live coding.
This is the fun of live coding. So one thing I'm wondering now is, wait a minute.
What are we looking for? Are we looking for where you're pulling in the data, like the notification?
No, I'm actually looking for why. I mean, there's no ngIf, right? So this should actually show up in the UI, no? I mean, this notification, why isn't... It's the styling, because it's hidden behind that thing. Right, I forgot
We
about
believe
that.
in you, Dominic.
So
Yay.
if I... Okay, no.
Is it as the index? Try the -1.
Maybe
no,
it needs to have the visible class.
Oh yeah, maybe. Oh, that's a good idea. Let's just make that visible. Thank you. That is the power
We
of
got you, fam.
coding with friends. That's, oh, what? Where is it? Huh? Wait a minute.
Any chance you can like inspect? I know we're in stack
Yes.
bullets, but can you inspect and then like go through the element tree and we can find out exactly why it's hidden?
Yes,
Perhaps.
that's a good idea. Also, there's some things. Oh, I think that's not our fault. So it should be here. So where do we have that toolbar?
It's like at the top of it, right?
So that is the list, and it has the. It is still invisible behind that thing. Transform. Let's set that to 10 pixels.
In your blog post,
something is super broken here with the Z index. What is going on here?
You had that one line commented out in your CSS.
Oh, did that? Maybe that broke everything?
And then you uncommented it. No, it was above that. It was line 24 was commented out.
Line, but
Line
wait a minute.
The transform translate y.
This one?
Yeah.
Maybe let's.
I don't know why you had it commented out.
Let's.
But then you uncommented that and then you added visible.
Okay, that's weird. Actually, it should show up if it has the visible class. I just want to show you that there's a button.
Chaos Monster said you typed it wrong. Look, visible on line 1, it needs another I.
Oh, thank you so
Dang
much.
it, I did not even see that. Dang.
Wow.
There you go.
That is, if you live code, you're blind. You cannot see such things. Thank you so much. So yes, so this is our notification, right? We have that update button. So what we have to do is, well, since we're working with observables, right? We somehow need to get an observable from a DOM event, right? So when I click that button, I want to basically emit a value because I'm composing streams together. So, and one way to solve this, when working with forms, and for instance, if you have like a type ahead, you can easily use reactive forms and a standalone form control. But for a button, I would say, well, I would stick to the approach of using a subject. So what we can do is basically say, I'm going to import a subject, right? And a subject is great because it's observer and observable at the same time. So we can subscribe to a subject and also next new values, which is super awesome. So I'm going to create that new subject, and I'm going to call that, let's say, updates, because that's going to tell me when they're, or when I click on, no, yeah, that's the stream that tells whether the UI should be updated or not. Yes. So we're going to instantiate a new subject here, and we're just going to say subject, and we're going to make that void. So this generic type basically just, it determines the type of the value emitted on that subject. But for us, well, we don't really emit any values. We just, or we don't care about the values emitted. We just want to know that there is something happening, or that there is an event. So we have this update stream. We're going to plug in. I'm going to go to view, right? Going to remove. Oh, we can keep it there for now. So here we have that button, right? And I want to listen for whenever I click on that button. And now I have my update stream, right? Which is the subject. I can not only subscribe to it and chain on operators, I can also next values. So I can be in the driver's seat here. Update $sign. Oh, it already tells me that I have this stream. Super nice. And I can now just emit a value, right? Void, just telling that there is actually nothing really emitted on the stream. But still, subscribers will be notified that something was emitted. Sounds strange, but yeah, well. Okay, does that make sense so far? So that we create this subject so that we can bridge it, so get an observable from a DOM event? Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, it does.
Okay, cool. So we have the subject, right? And now that we have the subject, what we can do is basically say inside here, right, where we have our initial data, we're going to create another stream called updates. And the updates will always is based on my subject. So, oh, there is an equal sign missing here. So whenever I click on that button, right, which is my updates, I want to get the latest data from the service, right? And the service is, huh?
No, I was agreeing with you. Yes. Sorry.
Yes. Okay. So whenever I click on that button, I want to get the latest data. And what I can do is basically say pipes, and when update emits a value, and that is the subject. So when I click on the button, because we hooked it up there in a template, I want to get the latest data. So I can use merge map here. In that case, I think, well, you could argue whether merge map or switch map makes sense in this case, but since we're, I would argue in a way that since the data is already cached and we retrieve the data synchronously, we could not really run into out of order responses, I guess. Well, I have to give it some more thought, but in our case, we just use, well, to be really safe, you can use switch map, but I would, yeah, let's stick to merge map here. So we don't care about the value because it's just, there is no value really. So what we want to do is say, hey, give me the data once. When I click on that button, of course, I have to import this, say merge map. And so whenever I click on a button, give me the latest data, right? Give me the data once. I don't want to get the stream, so I don't just want to hook into this property because, again, that's an ongoing stream, a long-living observable. So just give me the data once, the latest cached data, right? And then all I have to do is plug things back together. So I can say there's what I would recommend to use is the static merge instead of the pipeable merge or the merge operator, because it makes things more readable. So what we can do is import the merge operator here, the static one. And the static is really awesome. So say we're going to merge the initial jokes and our updates, right? Since both streams emit the same observable of the, no, I mean, not the same observable, but an observable of the same type, we can just assign it to our jokes observable, and both of them are going to return arrays of jokes.
That is so cool. So that's really how it works. You're just saying, here's my initial jokes, here's the updated ones.
Exactly. So the thing is, we really need those initial jokes. Why do we need those? Because otherwise, let me show you what this, see, we don't see any data, right? Because we say, hey, this update stream, this updates only emits a value when I click on that button, right? It's coming from that subject, which emits a value from in the UI when I click the button, right?
So it's like giving it a default or something to fall back on if the button hasn't clicked yet?
Yes. So what I do is say, hey, give me the initial jokes, and this stream completes right away. It just gives me that one value, the jokes once, and then that stream is completed. So it's not going to emit any more values.
Can we press the button now?
Yes, I can press the button. Wait a minute. We have to wait. We don't get any notifications yet. Let me see.
What do you mean we have to wait, Dominic? We need more jokes.
Yeah, I know you want to see the. Let me bring up the DevTools so I can show you that. No,
it's so easy, man. Just click it.
Give me just 1 second.
Don't worry. Justin put the link to the joke server in the YouTube chat, so I clicked on it, and now I'm not even paying attention. I'm just reading all the jokes.
Okay, see? Okay, we see the data. I can click on that button, but it's not changing. Now, pay attention to the DevTools, right? And here's a new request being made, and it's still the same, but as you can see, it is updating now. Isn't that awesome?
That is awesome.
Let me do it again. I clicked it because
I was like, I missed it. Do it again.
Okay, let me do it again. Let's wait for the request.
Click it slower this time.
In the background. So there's the new request here at the bottom. I click it, pay attention to the list. It's updating, right? I can click it again. Nothing happens because there was no request made yet, right? Now, I hope that you can follow along. Let me clear that one more time. So here, I can click it. I really press it all the time, but the data is not yet updated. Now let's wait for the request here at the bottom. And there it is. It was updated on that timer. I can click it, and the data is different now. Isn't that cool?
That is really cool.
That is cool. Okay, awesome.
I'll make a comment real quick on the pattern that you have here with the update, right? Which is real similar to what you have for the timer, which is essentially you're saying, I want this stream to trigger some other action, right? So you're using the timer as a trigger back in the service, and here you're using the click of the button as a trigger to, initiate this other thing. And so it's
exactly, yes,
merge map and switch map to kind of pull this off. That's kind of that pattern that you're using.
Yes, exactly. So this update, this subject is just a trigger to get the latest data, and I have to use the initial jokes. Otherwise, I only see some jokes on the screen if I press that button because, well, that's the only trigger then, right? So I'm basically having two triggers. One that gives me the data once, like the initial data, and one that gives me always the latest data when I press that button.
And you're using this observable, but you're not using the value that comes through it because you don't really care about it. So it's just another usage of an observable that maybe, people might jump into and start thinking, okay, I need an observable and I need to use the values from it. Well, you could also use an observable as just this trigger and not really care about the values like you pointed out.
Yes, exactly. And that's really the beauty of observables. You just create those pipelines, those chains, and you can have different triggers, right? You can have different event sources. You could just plug them together and do whatever you want. I really love that.
I want to make sure I understand. It's not updating right away because it hasn't gotten the data yet. So basically the update button is only really updating once we actually have an update kind of thing.
Yes, I mean, I press the button and it's still asking for the latest data, right? So this is still triggered. This function is still triggered because there will be an event being broadcasted on this subject, right? But the data is not going to change unless inside our service where we do this timer thing, we're just polling the data in the background every 10 seconds. And if I ask for the data all the time and it wasn't yet updated by the timer, then of course the data is not going to change, right? It is only going to change when that timer ticks, like when there's another tick, like now.
Right.
I can just click, wait 10 seconds, and then there's a new value because the timer ticked again.
Gotcha.
Okay, right. I think we can go until, showing that notification automatically and not just all the time, because we only want to show the notification when there's really an update. And I think then, because probably if I do also force reloading, that's going to take another 30 minutes or 20 minutes. I don't know if you have that much time.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's just finish this last.
Let's just wrap up this thing and the notifications, and then, well, we can, if you want, we can do another episode or so. Okay, cool. So this thing now is always shown, right? Because we added, excuse me, we added the visible class. So let me just remove that. Now we don't see the notification anymore because we have to dynamically add this visible class when an update is available, right? So the component should take care of this. And what we're going to do now is the jokes. So this is all the streams that make up like getting the data and stuff. Maybe I can just group that, like maybe this. So that is for all the jokes here, getting jokes, right? And now I'm going to implement the notification mechanism, notifications. And for that, again, think about your problem and break it down into smaller pieces. So the first thing is, so what is the initial trigger for notifications? Well, it is the stream, this exposed by our service, right? So we can say my initial, or well, maybe we can say notifications, right? This is my notification stream, which will emit values whenever that stream from the service emits a value. So we just simply say this dot joke service, right? We get the stream from the service, but now that is jokes, by the way, and I'm going to make that a little bit smaller and this a little bit bigger so we have more room here. So do we want to get all the values? No, I don't think so, because we want to skip.
But we want all the values.
Yeah, well, we want all the values. Not really. We want we want all the values, but skip the first one. Why do we want to skip the first one?
Because we already have it.
Yes, because we already have it, and we don't want to show the notification for the very first initial like request, right? Because then that would be kind of confusing. If I go to the list view, I click it, I get the data, and automatically like immediately see the notification, although I just retrieved and fetched the latest data, right? So I want to skip that very first value. So I can say pipe skip the first value. I'm going to import. What I really would love to have is that auto import here. So operators, we're going to say skip, right? We're going to skip the first value because the first is just the initial data. We only want to have values for all the future for all the future updates, which are happening in the background. So those are my notifications. Now, when do I want to show notifications? Well, that's easy, right? We can say my show stream, and the show stream, it's based on my notification stream. So whenever there is a new like update, like new jokes available, I can just say, hey, pipe, and there's a cool operator called map2. And map2 is just a shorthand for using map and give it a function, right? I could also say map, right? Say my value and then say true, but I always have to specify this callback function in map. But map2 is a shorthand, and I can just simply say true. Isn't that awesome? So every notification that is emitted for every update that is happening in the background, I just map it to a Boolean, which is in this case true. So when this stream only emits values true, right? Like, let's make this a little bit more clear here. So I have my notifications here, and let's say that stream emits an initial value. Oh, no, we skipped that. So I make it in parentheses, so it's skipped, right? It's 10 seconds later. Let's say 10 seconds are 5 dashes, so 3, 5. So we have some value, and then we have 5 dashes, and so on and so forth, right? That is my notification stream. Now my show stream, I'm gonna type it above here. Show is gonna be, that one is skipped, and this one is being mapped to true, right? So this is what those streams look like. So I know when this stream basically emits true, I want to show the notification, and now I also want to hide the notification, right?
Well, since notifications is equal to like skipping the first one, couldn't you just say const show equals this dot joke service? Like, couldn't you just make show equal the top line, or would that not work?
No, because this is not the same, like, the behavior, right? This really just, well, yeah, maybe you're right. So I can actually, yes, I could do that.
You're looking to use the true value.
What? Say it again.
You're looking to use the true value. You want to use the Boolean true false in order to display your class. So that's why you're getting this map to in there, right?
Yes, exactly. But I think I know what. Yeah, I could get rid of this show stream, but for me it makes it more clear, because this is really.
Oh no, that's totally fine. I just was curious if I was misunderstanding what it was doing, but I think I understand. So.
Oh yeah, I think I know what you mean. You can also plug in that map2 here and get rid of this stream, basically.
Okay.
You could do that, but I really like to make it really explicit and say, okay, these are my notifications. I'm just building up all those consts to make it super readable.
That makes sense. That totally makes sense. So now do we get to modify the class?
No, we need another stream which flips like the notification to false, right? Because we also want to remove that class.
Okay.
This stream only tells me, okay, when to show the notification, and now we need another stream that tells me when to hide the notification. And we're going to create another stream called hide. Just make it super easy to read.
I love how logical you are and like step by step, because I'm always like, I want to see something and I want to see it now, even if it doesn't like hide itself again. So I like it. You're thinking it through very thoroughly.
Yeah, that really, honestly, that helped me a lot understanding reactive programming. Just make things super, super small, like, because in the end, you can always plug things back together.
Yeah.
So, okay, my hide stream. Can anybody tell me what that is based on? So when do I want to hide my notification? What is the trigger for that?
Can we do notifications pipe map to false, or no?
No, because my notifications wouldn't be the trigger, right? What is the trigger to make that notification go away? I have that update button, right? So whenever I click that update button, I want to just make that go away, that notification. Does that make sense?
Do we have a variable for that? Or
yes,
like
we have that subject, which is the value, right, when I click the button.
Okay.
So the notification goes away when the update button is clicked.
Exactly. So what I can say is update, right? Remember, this update thing was the subject, which we use here inside the template. So when I click the button, we emit a value on that subject. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So whenever update emits a value, well, same logic, we say pipe and then map to false. Very easy, right? And now we have all the pieces for our notification stream. So we're going to create another stream called show notification. Show notification, that's going to be an observable of Boolean, I think. So we have Boolean. So this is the stream. I have to expose it to the view, right? And now I say show notification. So, and then, as I said, bring things back together. We broke it down in all those like core building blocks and all those tiny pieces. And now we're gonna use the static merge again. Today, I don't know why, but I always forget that equal sign. So merge, and I'm gonna say show and hide. And this thing is gonna emit a value, which is a combination of all those. So let me make that a little bit clearer. So here I have height, and height is essentially based on update, right? So an update triggers a value, emits a value when I click on the update button. And let's say I click here on the update button, let's say B for button, and here B for button, right? Which means I would get a value here, which is false, right? And the same goes for this. It is also false. And now my notification stream is now a combination of all those. So basically, I have true here, I have false here, I have true here, and false here. Does that make sense? So depending on that Boolean, I can just add a class or remove it. Isn't that awesome?
Yes, I agree. It's very awesome.
Okay, so
Awesome.
great. So in here in the template, all we have to do is basically use a property binding, right? And we say class dot, and we know we have that visible class, and this time we type it correctly, visible. Nice. So visible, and here we're gonna say we have that show notification stream, and we're gonna use our best friend, which is the async pipe. Again, always use the async pipe. Right, and then we have the notifications already implemented. Let's see this in action. So I can click on this. We don't see a notification because we skipped the first value, right? I don't have the notification. I'm waiting 10 seconds. And there's the notification, and we have new data. Ta-da! And it's updated. It's not automatically reflected.
It worked. It worked. Woohoo!
It worked, and now we get this updates. That is so cool.
Okay, that is really cool.
I
want to go. Can you go back to that last? I wanted to look at that last file you were in.
Yes.
Just a little longer. Okay, thank you.
I really like this pattern because when I implement applications, I really try to focus on user experience, because user experience in the end is also what drives the success of a product. And having such great mechanism, and you see, it is not that complicated to implement, right? If you have the tools, right? You have RxJS, you have all these, you have Angular. Angular gives you so much. And with just a few lines of code, this was not a lot of code, right? We can easily implement such cool thing where we get notifications and people can just scroll and get notified. Oh, there's an update. I click on it. Yes, I want to see new data, or no, they can just ignore it. For me, this is really mind-blowing, and this is also why I love reactive programming so much.
Very nice.
Very nice. I think, yeah, we should stop here because it's already.
I think you should totally come on and do another show, though. Because, like, I could watch you do this all day.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean,
you know what's crazy is we've ran so far over the time allotted for this, and not one single person has dropped off the live stream. In fact, we have more people watching now. So
apparently, lots of people could watch you all day.
And they're all late for meetings.
I'm happy. Yeah, that makes me happy. Super nice. Yeah, I mean, there's a few more things in the blog post where I actually implement forced reloading, because that's something that you definitely want, right? Because now maybe as a user, I want to be in that driver's seat and say, hey, now is the perfect time for me to get new updates, right? This is not working yet because we have to make it, work. Although it's not that complicated, but yeah, we could do that in another episode if you want.
Yeah, and people go also check out the blog post. They should read that blog post. They can see how that's implemented as well.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I guess that would be it for live coding. If unless, yeah, so I could stop sharing my screen if you want.
Yeah, that works.
Cool. All right, let me see. So if I click here, I'm going to click on, do I still sharing? No, I'm not.
We see you.
We see you.
That
was
is
a pretty
great.
close-up of Dominic.
That was me very close to the camera. You don't want to see that.
You cracked me up, Dominic. That was super fun.
Yeah, that was great. There was so much good stuff. I mean, probably my favorite little gem in there. I mean, all the stuff was great, but my favorite little gem was the map too. And that's the thing about this stuff is there's just you can consume it, and then there's just all these little pieces that you can take away from that to do these other things. I'm already starting to think about I'm ready to use map 2 here and there. So yeah, very cool.
Oh yes, it's really great. It makes your code like even more concise because you don't have these callbacks and stuff, and it's pretty awesome. There's so many great operators.
All right.
That was an awesome show. I knew it would be.
Does anybody want to do any picks before we wrap up?
I think I have 2 great picks. One very awesome pick is from Manfred Steyer, which is the ngX build plus. I think that is really, really awesome. It's essentially just extending the Angular CLI's default build behavior so without ejecting, and that is really awesome. You can plug stuff into there without ejecting the Webpack config and mess with all that. Really great library. You should definitely check that out. And another tiny pick is it is actually called the nth child tester. I don't know if I can post it somewhere, but it helped me. Like I'm developing this tiny application at the moment, and I need to do some CSS nth child stuff. And this tool, it's from CSS Tricks. It helped me to visualize this nth child and then get my things right.
Love me some CSS Tricks.
Yes. It's really amazing.
Oh, Mike!
Oh, now Mike Rocky shows up.
Mike showed up just in time for picks.
Just in time. So when I'm done, he shows up.
Yeah. And I was just about to steal Mike's pick too. So, and I would have gotten away with it.
Well, what's your pick?
Oh, I get to do picks before Mike? Okay. I was going to pick the Akita, the new state management system that everybody's talking about today.
All right.
Mike.
State management for
Is
Angular?
that really what you were going to pick, Mike?
I didn't have any picks, but good job stealing.
Well, now you have an excuse for not having any picks.
I'm really sad that Panda's not here because my pick was, he had mentioned that like Jurassic World was out or something, but it's like still like weeks away or something. But I actually saw it when I was in Paris a couple days ago because I guess people release movies like months early in other countries. I don't know what it's about, but yeah, it was really good, and I wanted to mention that. But I'm sad he's not here, so I don't get to rub it in. But yeah.
And since he's not here, I have one more thing that I wanted to shout out that was really cool was the new Selection Directive for the Angular CDK. Oh, yeah. It's out there on StackBlitz, and it's very cool. Austin showed it to me. I think Austin probably either built it or helped build it, but it was very cool.
Oh,
don't tell Austin I said it was cool because it'll go straight to his head. We don't want that. But it's pretty cool. Low key.
Cool. All right, then. That'll be a wrap. Dominic, thanks a ton for coming on, sharing your time, sharing an extra 30 minutes. Really appreciate it. It was great content. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I had a lot of fun, really. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Thanks.
Thanks,
awesome.
Ian.
Yeah, good episode. I learned a lot.
Mike.
All right. That's a wrap. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
We'll catch
Tell
you next
Pascal
time.
we said hello.
I will. And he says hello back to all of you. Like,
tell him he should come on.
With hearts.
Cool. All right.
All right. Thanks again for having me. Thank you very much.
For sure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.